If a 16-year-old janitor's son solved a problem that stumped Ivy League professors for years, would anyone believe him? Most people wouldn't. And neither did Dr. Peter Caldwell, not until he saw it with his own eyes. It all started on a rainy Tuesday evening, in a silent lecture hall at Eastbridge University, one of the top physics schools in the country. Dr. Caldwell returned to his classroom to grab a folder he'd forgotten, and there, under the soft flicker of fluorescent light, he saw something that stopped him cold. A teenager, a black boy, standing in front of the whiteboard, chalk in hand, mid-equation. But this wasn't just doodling, it was quantum entanglement theory, advanced level, unsolved problems. Dr. Caldwell's first instinct? Anger, accusation. Who gave you permission to be here? The boy's answer was quiet, steady. No one, sir. I was just trying to see if I could help. Help? A janitor's kid? Solve what a whole department couldn't? But the real twist came when the professor examined the board and realized what the boy had written might just be the missing piece to a decade-long unsolved equation. His name? Isaiah Brooks. And what happened next will challenge everything you think you know about talent, opportunity, and the quiet power of unrecognized genius. If this story moves you even a little, I have a humble request. Help us hit our first milestone of 1,000 subscribers. It costs nothing, but means everything. Subscribe now and turn on the bell so you don't miss the full story, because this one you won't forget. Dr. Peter Caldwell didn't like surprises. A senior theoretical physicist at Eastbridge University, he prided himself on order, preparation, and logic. But that night, the sight of a stranger, a kid, solving complex quantum formulas on his classroom whiteboard unraveled everything he thought he knew. "I asked you a question," he repeated sharply. The boy turned, his hands still dusted with chalk, his posture straight despite the fear in his eyes. "I wasn't trying to harm anything, sir. I saw the problem on the board and wanted to try solving it." Caldwell's voice was cold. "This is restricted faculty space. You can't just walk in and play Einstein." The boy's lips tightened. "My dad cleans the building. He said I could wait here while he finished the east wing." Just then, a man appeared at the door, breathless, wearing blue janitor coveralls soaked from the rain. "Isaiah, there you are. I'm so sorry, Professor Caldwell. He wasn't bothering anything, I swear." Dr. Caldwell stared. He recognized the man, Malcolm Brooks, the janitor who always nodded politely but was rarely noticed by faculty. "He was writing equations on my board," Caldwell said flatly. Malcolm looked over his son's shoulder. His face shifted from worry to stunned disbelief. "Is that the Schrödinger collapse variant?" he whispered. Isaiah nodded. "With a harmonic twist I thought might reduce entropy spikes." Dr. Caldwell blinked. "How do you even know what that means?" Isaiah shrugged, almost apologetically. "I read, a lot. My mom, before she passed, she left behind boxes of physics books. I go through them when I can't sleep." Caldwell stepped forward, scanning the formulas. They weren't just complex, they were original, not perfect, but novel. "You expect me to believe you came up with this on your own?" Isaiah looked down. "I don't expect anything, sir." Caldwell felt a flicker of something unexpected, unease. He dismissed the boy with a wave of the hand. "This isn't a playground. Mr. Brooks, please don't bring your son into faculty rooms again." Malcolm nodded, his face tight. "Of course. It won't happen again." As the two turned to leave, Dr. Caldwell stared at the board one more time. His gut told him something he couldn't yet say aloud. That boy might have just made a leap his own department had failed to see. But instead of saying it, He grabbed an eraser and wiped the board clean, as if removing the math would erase the discomfort it caused. That night he couldn't sleep. He kept seeing that equation, and that boy's eyes. Not arrogant, not desperate, just certain, like he saw something others couldn't. The apartment was small, one bedroom, linoleum floors, a flickering kitchen light they hadn't bothered to fix in weeks. Malcolm set down his mop bucket by the door and rubbed his temples. Isaiah sat silently at the table, flipping through a worn notebook filled with hand-drawn equations. "I told you to stay in the lobby, son." "I know," Isaiah said softly, "but I saw the problem on the board, and I couldn't help it." Malcolm exhaled, torn between pride and dread. "We can't afford any trouble, Isaiah." "My job, it's all we have." "I didn't break anything," Isaiah said. "I just solved it." That was the problem, Malcolm thought. His son didn't know how to hide his brilliance. He never had. Isaiah was different since he was little, putting together complex patterns, solving advanced puzzles in seconds, asking questions most adults couldn't answer. But the world didn't know what to do with kids like him, especially black boys from families cleaning the floors of places like Eastbridge. "You're back okay today?" Malcolm asked, noticing Isaiah shift in his chair. Isaiah winced. "I stood most of the time. Sitting too long still makes it hurt." A shadow passed over Malcolm's face. The injury was old, but still raw. A year ago, Isaiah had been a student at Jefferson High, a gifted student in name only. His math teacher, Miss Palmer, accused him of cheating when he finished a test designed for college freshmen in under 15 minutes with a perfect score. She didn't believe a boy like him could be that smart, so she made him sit still, for hours, in a wooden chair that aggravated an undiagnosed spinal issue. When he stood or moved, she hit his desk with a ruler. Once, she struck his back directly. Malcolm had pulled him out the next day. The school board did nothing. Called it discipline. The hospital called it soft tissue trauma. Isaiah hadn't sat through a full class since. He now learned from old textbooks, YouTube physics lectures, and most of all, his mother's journals. Before her death, Dr. Leona Brooks had been a brilliant researcher with unfinished dreams. She never got the tenure she deserved. Her ideas were dismissed, her proposals rejected. Malcolm still remembered her words before she passed. "One day, someone will see him, and when they do, I hope they don't look away." Isaiah flipped the notebook open to a page marked with stars. In his mother's looping cursive, a note. "Entanglement is not chaos, it's choreography. If we listen close enough, the universe hums in harmony." He stared at it, whispering to himself, "It's like music. I can almost hear it." "Son," Malcolm said gently, "maybe we let this one go." "That professor didn't see you, that's okay." Isaiah looked up, his voice barely above a whisper. "But what if he does? What if this time someone finally listens?" Dr. Peter Caldwell sat in his office, coffee untouched, staring at a reprint of the equation Isaiah had written. He'd tried to dismiss it. He really had. But the formulation wouldn't leave his mind. It wasn't just a clever variation. It was insightful. A simplification he hadn't considered. A nuance that hinted at something deeper. He pulled up his department archives and started searching. Leona Brooks, Physics, Eastbridge. Only one result, a footnote. A thank you in the acknowledgments of a now famous entanglement paper, the same paper he'd reviewed over a decade ago. The main author? Dr. Wallace Kerrigan, a departmental star. But in the fine print, computational assistance, L. Brooks. Caldwell leaned back, eyes narrowing. He remembered that paper. He remembered the strange, elegant logic inside it. He'd assumed it came from Kerrigan. Now, he wasn't so sure. A knock at his door pulled him from the screen. It was Dr. Maya Fielding, the new interim department chair. "I hear you had a run-in with a young mathematician," she said, smiling faintly. Caldwell cleared his throat. "If you're referring to Malcolm Brooks' son, it was unusual." "He's brilliant," she said simply. "You've met him?" "No," she said, sitting down, "but I've seen the footage." Caldwell blinked. "Footage?" "Security pulled it after your complaint. They thought it might be vandalism. What they found was a boy standing in front of a problem for 8 minutes before writing a single mark. Then he started solving, not guessing. Solving, Caldwell looked away. "I may have misjudged." "You're not the first," she said gently. "You won't be the last." He hesitated. "His mother, Leona, she worked here?" "She applied for a research fellowship twice," Maya said, voice tight. "She had references from Princeton and MIT, but both times she was told she wasn't the right fit." Caldwell grimaced. He knew exactly what that meant. A black woman proposing bold ideas in quantum theory? It was easier to sideline her than to admit the system might need changing. "I'd like to speak with the boy again," he said. Maya studied him. "Why?" "Because I think he's on to something real." She leaned forward. "Then make it right, Peter, not for your ego, for him, for her, for the science we keep claiming we care about." The next evening, the Brooks apartment phone rang. Isaiah answered, his voice cautious. "Hello?" "This is Professor Caldwell," came the voice on the other end. "I'd like to meet with you. Properly this time." Isaiah froze. Malcolm took the phone gently. "Professor, with respect, why now?" There was a pause. Then Caldwell replied, "Because I think I made a mistake, and because I think your son might be able to teach us something none of us saw coming." Malcolm looked at his son, who had gone quiet. "When and where?" The meeting was set for Saturday afternoon, in a small unused lab space on campus. When they arrived, the room was transformed. Multiple whiteboards, open journals, even a standing desk. "I thought this might be more comfortable," Caldwell said, nodding to Isaiah's back. Isaiah gave a small nod. "Thank you." Caldwell pointed to a fresh equation. "This is a variation of the entanglement problem you touched last time. I want you to approach it however feels natural to you." Isaiah stepped up. His fingers trembled slightly. "You okay?" Caldwell asked. Isaiah swallowed. "Yeah, just when I get nervous I remember Miss Palmer yelling at me, telling me I was a fraud, that I'd never be anything." Caldwell's face tightened. That was wrong. "You're not a fraud, Isaiah. You're something rare, and it's time someone told you that." Isaiah stared at the board. Then he began to write. Lines, symbols, arrows. He moved with a rhythm, not rushed, but intentional. Within 15 minutes he stepped back. Caldwell stared, his lips parted, then closed again. It was right, more than right, it was elegant. A pathway no one in his department had considered. "Can you explain how you got there?" Caldwell asked. Isaiah hesitated. "I just hear it, not literally, but like, I see where the numbers want to go, they dance. Like my mom said, it's not chaos, it's choreography." Malcolm wiped at his eyes in silence. Caldwell exhaled slowly. "Isaiah, would you consider working with me? Not as a student, as a partner. I want to understand your method, your mother's ideas. I think we've been standing on a foundation she built and no one gave her credit." Isaiah looked stunned. "You really mean that?" "I do. but behind his eyes, Isaiah still looked hesitant. "I don't want to be a project," he said, "or a symbol." "You won't be," Caldwell promised. "You'll be a contributor, maybe even a trailblazer." News of Isaiah's work began to circulate within the department. Whispers in faculty lounges, raised eyebrows in meetings. How could a teenager, a janitor's son, do what seasoned physicists couldn't? Caldwell scheduled a private demonstration for select faculty, hoping to build support for a research fellowship. Isaiah stood beside his standing desk, notebook in hand, facing a half-circle of skeptical professors. One of them, Dr. Lionel Thatcher, leaned back with folded arms. "So you're telling us this child derived a viable solution to the resonance collapse paradox on his own?" Isaiah opened his mouth, but Caldwell spoke first. "He's not a child. He's a mathematician. And yes, he did." Thatcher scoffed. "And we're just to accept that? Based on his word?" "No," Caldwell replied evenly. "Based on the math, which none of us have solved." Another professor chimed in. "This will look like affirmative outreach. Optics matter." Dr. Maya Fielding stepped forward. "What matters more is truth. Isaiah's approach not only solves a problem we've been stuck on, it opens a new theoretical path. Are we physicists or politicians?" The room quieted. Caldwell gestured to Isaiah. "Show them." Isaiah, nervous but steady, stepped forward and rewrote his mother's symphony method, blending it with recent discoveries from MIT and CERN. He simplified an entangled state algorithm in 3 moves instead of 12. Gasps broke out. One of the physicists mouthed, "Impossible." "It's not impossible," Isaiah said softly. "It's just misheard." As the session ended, several professors nodded, others remained silent. But Isaiah saw the look on Dr. Thatcher's face. Not doubt. Fear. Later that week, an anonymous complaint reached the dean's office. Unverified outsider influencing academic materials. Possible academic dishonesty. Potential security breach. Isaiah was temporarily barred from lab access. Caldwell was furious. "This is politics, not science." Dr. Fielding nodded. "It's worse. They're trying to bury him before the world knows his name." Isaiah sat quietly in the corner, staring at the carpet. Malcolm walked in late from work, hearing the news. "Again?" he whispered. "After all this?" Isaiah didn't cry. He just asked, "What if it's always like this? What if no matter what I solve, they'll never let me belong?" Malcolm knelt in front of his son, his voice rough. "Then we don't ask to belong anymore, son. We build the place that finally sees you." They couldn't silence math. While administrators debated policy and professors whispered in faculty lounges, the math kept speaking. Isaiah, with Caldwell's and Dr. Fielding's support, submitted his revised symphony method paper to a prestigious open-access physics journal. It bypassed the university's gatekeepers. Within 3 weeks, it went viral in academic circles. Elegant rethinking of quantum harmony. Breakthrough reminiscent of early Ramanujan. Paper by independent scholar stuns theoretical community. Dr. Lionel Thatcher stormed into Dean Wexler's office. "This is a mockery. A janitor's son publishing quantum theory? It undermines our standards." The dean remained calm. Or perhaps it exposes them. Behind closed doors, things shifted. The Board of Academic Oversight began an investigation, not into Isaiah, but into faculty practices that may have suppressed similar voices before. Caldwell received a call from MIT. "We'd like to invite Isaiah Brooks to present at our symposium on emerging theories." Isaiah stood before a sea of leading scientists, gripping the podium. He looked out. Not one person looked like him. But then he thought of his mother. My mom used to say equations are like music. You don't need a title to hear the beauty, you just need ears. He began to present. No stutter, no fear. Slide after slide, his explanation of harmonic entanglement stunned the room. When he concluded, the silence was followed by something he'd never heard in school before. A standing ovation. Back at Eastbridge, even the most skeptical professors could no longer deny what was in front of them. Dean Wexler met with Malcolm and Isaiah privately. "You've changed this institution," she admitted, "and embarrassed us in the best way." A new program was announced. The Leona Brooks Fellowship for Underrepresented Theoretical Thinkers. Isaiah would be its first recipient and co-founder. But for Isaiah, the biggest moment came quietly. After the ceremony, he walked into the now familiar lab and saw his mother's old notebook displayed in a glass case. A plaque read, "In honor of Dr. Leona Brooks," whose music reshaped the silence. The lecture hall was quiet again. This time, Isaiah stood not as a guest, but as a speaker. Not to defend his worth, but to share his work. And yet, as he looked into the crowd, he didn't see professors or scientists. He saw the janitor's son who used to be afraid to raise his hand. He saw his mother kneeling beside his bed, whispering about particle spins like fairy tales. He saw a young boy who only wanted to be heard, and finally was. "We keep looking for genius in the same places," Isaiah said into the microphone, and then act surprised when it shows up somewhere else. He let that sit. But brilliance isn't rare, being seen is. The room was silent. Then applause, long, deep, deserved. As Isaiah stepped off stage, Caldwell clapped the loudest. Dr. Maya Fielding stood beside Malcolm Brooks, her voice low with admiration. "She would have been proud," she said. Malcolm smiled, eyes misty. "She is. I see it every time he solves something the world said was beyond him." Dear friend watching this, Isaiah's story isn't just about one boy breaking into academia. It's about how many Isaiahs are still out there, in forgotten classrooms, behind locked doors, told they don't belong. This story hit me hard, because I realized the world doesn't lack brilliance. It lacks the courage to believe it can come from anywhere. Have you ever been underestimated, or have you underestimated someone else? Drop your story in the comments. Let's talk, let's learn. And if this story moved you, if you felt even for a second that Isaiah deserved better, then please, like this video, subscribe to this channel. Help us reach our first 1,000 subscribers. Because this channel isn't just about stories, it's about change. And every sub brings us one step closer to giving voices like Isaiah's the spotlight they've always deserved. Thank you for watching. Thank you for feeling. And most of all, thank you for believing.